ready for Christmas?
Yeah!
Okay.
It's this Friday.
Sure is. Are you excited?
Yeah!
Oh. You think of reading everything on your list? Were you a good boy, actually, this year?
Yes, because Santa said that.
Oh.
We got a call that time when we were getting our car some gas, and he said that we were on the good list.
Oh. Did he say anything about me?
No.
No, Santa always forgets about Dada. It's weird. I make all the cookies and he always forgets about me. Alright, so you're excited?
Yeah!
Alright. Did you have a good school year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a smiley little elf today.
You are definitely a smiley elf today. Alright. So, it's 2 o'clock on the dot. You ready to make some gingerbread cookies?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but first we need to do our joke.
Okay.
Dun, dun.
Then let's do our joke.
What's the most dangerous cookie?
Oreo.
No,
What?
the gingerbread man.
Oh, the Gingerbread man. Well, sadly, we're not going to be making any of those today. Do you have any other jokes?
Yeah. What is Santa's tax status?
Tax status? I don't know. What is his tax status?
Self-employed.
Oh, elf employed. That's funny. No, you didn't wash your hands. All right.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Well, let's make some gingerbread cookies in our bowl. Right? We're setting ourselves up for the creamy method. So I have butter, sugar, molasses, which we should just think of as sugar. It's just a liquid form of sugar.
Yeah.
Salt, and I always put my spices in there because I like to kind of smell them as they mix together, get a little bit of heat on them. Most people put their spices in the flour and put it at the end. It's also fine, but I like to kind of smell mine going from beginning, and I like to make sure they're completely incorporated. That's why I put it all with the butter. Now the butter for creaming should be about room temperature, right? That's one of the ways that we make sure it's going to aerate properly and that it's going to incorporate everything very, very well. So we have room temperature butter, we have molasses, dark brown sugar. If you want to use light brown, you can. If you want to use white sugar, you can. Dark brown sugar will help these cookies stay soft. If you find that molasses is perhaps a bit too intense for you, even with all the other sugars and stuff going on, something that I often like to do with gingerbread is I'll go half molasses and half honey in my recipes. So you could definitely swap out some honey for this and you can start softening that intense flavor. I like gingerbread to be very assertive, so I make mine with a lot of kind of intense flavors and ginger, and it will be delicious. So because I'm lazy, we use our stand mixer.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Even though someone has enough energy, we should probably have them doing it by hand. We'll just use our machine.
Hey,
After we plug it in. Okay. So we're mixing. What we're looking for is completely uniform and even distribution of our products. We want to make sure that the butter starts to aerate and pale in color. It's going to be a little trickier to see with the molasses in there because obviously it's going to take on a darker color. But something is, it should smell like gingerbread, right? What do you think, bud? Too smelly. That's not a word we typically use in the kitchen, but okay. Blaze doesn't like my gingerbread because it's too kind of intense of a flavor for him. He just likes pure sugar, right, bud? Yeah. Okay. Earlier today, he opened up a candy cane and said, "These have sugar in them," and I was like, "Yeah, they're pretty much only sugar." And he was like, "They're my favorite now," and he just ran off with them. So someone's all kind of cracked up on sugar already, huh?
Sugar!
Okay. So with a stand mixer, I always endorse like helping your machine out a little bit. They're very good at mixing and doing that, but they're not so good about cleaning the corners and things. So every now and then I'll just kind of tilt the bowl to help us out, right? We're going to turn up the speed just a little bit.
Super fast!
Just so that we can incorporate a little bit more air as we go. Now we are going to go through a couple different steps today and we're going to bake. And what we're really going to start doing is getting everybody ready for what comes next, which is... What are we doing on Wednesday? Literally just talked about it. Gingerbread houses. Okay, so we're going to be using similar dough, but we're going to start looking at a couple different techniques because I know when most people make gingerbread houses, they get frustrated very quickly because they have problems with the icing or they have problems with the shape of the sides of their gingerbread house. Come back up here, little elf. All right, little elf, you said you wanted to crack the egg, right?
Yeah.
Okay, can you do it? You want me to crack it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I wanted to put the egg in and use it.
Okay, here you go. It's cracked. Don't get any shell in there. No, okay, you're making me nervous. I'm afraid you're gonna stick your whole hand in there. Alright, so the egg is in. It's okay, bud. You're making me too nervous. We can't have any injuries the week of Christmas. No injuries. This is one of the first years Dad hasn't cut his hand open at Christmas time. Almost always happens. Okay.
Why am I watching the little mixy thingy? Dizzy.
Okay. I like to go through with the creamy method. It's very important that we make sure everything is mixed well. So even though our machine can do it, I will often do it by hand also because it will help mix from the bottom all the way up to the top. You could definitely do this with a spatula or a spoon, but I already have this paddle attachment that's dirty, and I'm pretty lazy, so I will just continue to get that dirty. So now we add in a whole bunch of all-purpose flour, like a lot.
Can I pour it all in?
Yeah. Just try not to make a mess. We're working without a safety net here. Okay, so we have our flour. If you want to sift it, it's usually a good idea. That way we don't have any lumps of anything in there. And then of course in here we also have our baking soda as our leavening agent. I would say don't swap out your baking soda for baking powder. You'll get something that's very, very cakey. And especially with this much acid in this recipe, the baking soda is a good way to go. Buddy, just pour it. I'm moving the bowl to help you. There you go. All right. Did a good job, little elf. I guess you're my little helper, huh?
Dirty elf.
Okay, wipe off your hand. Here you go. Don't. Okay, yep. And so, because my machine likes to kick stuff up, I will get it started by hand, and then we'll finish it with the machine. And what you're going to see is this is going to be a very, very stiff dough, and it's going to be very sticky. It is very important that we make this dough and then we chill it before the next step. A lot of times I'm very much in a hurry, trying to get stuff done very, very quickly. Gingerbread is something we can't really do that with. It is such a soft, sticky dough when it's ready that it needs to chill. So typically I would say if you are planning to do this, I would say do this like after dinner time, make the dough, chill it overnight, and then roll it out the next day. I like to pulse it, make sure I don't make a huge mess, and it will come together very nice. Again, I like to get in there and smell it. Smells like gingerbread to me. That's exciting. Come back up here, low, if you're okay. All right? Okay. And then we need to get it out of here, and you're gonna see it's a sticky dough, right? Pretty soft. Go ahead and feel it. I'm not worried about cooties because we're gonna bake it. It's fine. But you see, it's a very soft dough. It'd be very difficult to get shapes cut out of that. So what we do is we put it in plastic wrap, or of course, if you've got like big gallon Ziploc bags, those work really well also. We're gonna pat it out into something close to the shape that we need, and then we will chill it, I would say for at least an hour. Overnight is a very, very good place to go. So we take our plastic wrap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plastic wrap.
What's on your Christmas list there, Blaze?
Lots and lots and lots of Pokemon cards.
Yeah, somebody got way into Pokemon this year, and we are trying to catch up. So, at least Santa knows all about that stuff, right, bud?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank goodness for Santa and his superior Pokemon knowledge. So, we have our plastic wrap, we have our dough. What I like to do is
Roll it.
we're gonna
and
press it
add
out.
it.
And mark it with a B. Is
Yeah.
that where you're going? Right? So, I like to create like a nice little envelope. So I fold it over.
Can I make it?
You can make it next time, okay? And then I like to turn it over. You can pat it out, or you can go ahead and roll it.
Oh, can I roll?
Boy, you're just all about being a little helper elf today, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and try and roll it fairly even. At this point, it's not super, super important. We're not gonna cut our shapes out of this. And then we chill it. Now, because I am so well versed in the magic of TV, we're gonna put this in the fridge and immediately pull out the cold one, because we're like that. What do you think, little elf? You can see the dough is much firmer, much, much firmer, okay? So I like to take my parchment paper. I like to bake on parchment. I like to roll on parchment. It's easy, it's disposable.
I have a question.
What is your question?
What is parchment?
Parchment is a type of paper.
Oh. Is it like sandpaper?
It is not like sandpaper. I guess if it had a grit, it would be like 200,000 or something because it's very smooth, but it is not like sandpaper. Okay? So here we have our gingerbread dough. You can see it's very, very stiff, right? We'll set it
Can I
down.
feel?
Go for it.
Oh, very stiff.
Oh, okay.
Very stiff.
And then I like to put parchment on top because what I see most people do when they roll out cookie dough is they add a ton of flour to it and then they start rolling. And what happens is you start incorporating flour into your recipe that isn't supposed to be in your recipe, okay? Now what you're seeing me do here with a cold dough is what we call waking up the dough. And we just kind of press into it, making these little grooves. And that way,
Like, is it sleeping?
and that way we wake it up so that it's ready to be rolled out next. It's a very common practice with cold doughs, especially when we're talking about bread and cookies. So we get these nice little ridges. I remove my parchment from time to time so that it doesn't wrinkle into the edges. And then from here we can start rolling. The size recipe that we have should give us a little more than a half pan full of cookies, depending on how thick you want to roll them. The standard for gingerbread is about 3/8 or 1/4 of an inch. You can go all the way up to a 1/2 inch. We definitely don't want to start going too much higher than that because it will be difficult for them to cook fully. But you see the dough, quite stiff. It's a little hard to roll. So make sure that you ate your Wheaties and you're ready to do this, okay?
Wheaties?
Wheaties is a cereal that athletes eat sometimes.
Oh, cereal.
If they're paid to say they eat it, right? So we will see. So we're rolling, rolling, rolling. What's really important when we're rolling stuff is the thickness is very key, but what's also important is that it's uniform thickness.
Yeah, both of those things are important.
So one of the things we do is when we look at it, it probably looks pretty good, but if we feel it, right, if we run our hand across the surface, it's like a topographical map. We can feel every little imperfection in there. So like right here I can feel a giant ridge, and over here it's a little shorter. So then I roll from where it's taller to where it's shorter, and then I can keep rolling and rolling and rolling. Now, if you have a ton of space and you're very organized, I would say roll all of your dough into a sheet like this. You can even do it when it's soft, as we just had, and then chill that. And then you can come in and just be ready to bake all in one day. In the professional kitchen, we usually roll everything. We have giant automatic rolling pins called sheeters. And we'll sheet everything, we'll chill it down, and then we'll bake everything on the same day. That way we can kind of compartmentalize each step. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. My little elf here is worried that my dough is coming out the sides of my parchment, but it will be perfectly fine. Okay? So, obviously, we're going to cut shapes out of this. So I'm going to have a bowl of flour and our cutters, right? And so, little elf, why don't you pick a shape for us?
Teddy bear.
Okay, the biggest one, that makes sense. I don't know why I'm surprised at all. So then we will take what's really important when you roll doughs between parchment, between plastic wrap or anything, is we need to clear it from both sides, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel this straight back, and there it is peeled away, and I'm going to add a little flour, and then I'll put this back on, but I'm not going to push it against the dough, and I'll flip it over, because what happens is, if I roll this dough out really nice, and then I don't clear it from both sides, when I go to try and remove it, it's going to stick, and I'm going to stretch it and likely tear it. So we've got to make sure that it's completely free of both sides before we go to cut, because we worked really hard to make an ideal shape, so we need to make sure we kind of maintain that as we go. So, to cut, it's very simple. Get a little bit of flour on there, because he picked the largest cutter. It will take a second. And then you want to press straight down, and then pull straight up. It's really easy when the dough is good and cold. When it's a little softer, you might have to work with it a little bit.
I got some more cutters.
I see that you got some more cutters. You might have to work with it a little bit. If it's fighting you, obviously just chill it down. It'll be perfectly fine. Now here's something else that we really need to talk about when we're cutting things. We want to cut everything as close together as possible, right? I see a lot of wasted dough every time my little helper is helping me. So we want to almost overlap our shapes. We don't want to re-roll this any more than is absolutely necessary, okay? A little bit of flour. Get those really close together. If it comes up in your cutter, even better. If not, like I said, we're going to cut it, we can chill it, and then we can just pull it right off, okay? Is this the shape we want?
Yeah, a stocking.
A stocking. But you see, I can make the edges touch, so like, there's no wasted dough between my bear and my stocking, right? It's all going to be used right there. We can re-roll this dough. It's not going to hurt it a huge amount, but it's obviously more steps and more work for us, okay? So once we have our dough cut, onto our baking sheet. I like to bake on parchment. Some people like to just bake on a cookie sheet. Either way is fine.
Ooh, cookies.
We will bake it in a preheated oven. I like to bake it at 375 degrees for about 10 minutes. I like mine to be a little softer. Obviously, the real key here is making sure that you have similar sized cookies on the tray, because my little elf picked this giant teddy bear and I have this little snowflake. They are going to bake at wildly different times. So try and keep the sizes of your cookies uniform where you can. Let them cool completely on the cookie sheet, and then we can pull them off and ice them. There's no need to remove them to a cooling rack. It actually helps them stabilize if you're going to ice them later. What do you think, little elf? Sound good? Okay, I'm going to give you this.
And then go.
I see that. I'm going to give you this so that you can do some more cutting while I, apparently, maybe, nope. I was going to say I thought we had a question coming in, but we don't. Little elf.
Hi, Miss Andalacy.
All right. So cut. Make sure we overlap. Like, get the lines lined up, okay? So while my elf is doing that, let's look ahead to our gingerbread houses, okay? I'm not going to walk through the entire recipe because it's the same technique. We're just creaming. What you're going to see is there's going to be even more flour in that recipe, so it's even stiffer.
Where should I put it?
Well, buddy, just put the lines. Like, you see how these lines are all touching?
Yeah.
Okay? Right there. See how I did that? Magic. It will be a stiffer dough. We're going to take a lot of the spices out. It's very rare that anybody actually eats a gingerbread house. We can add the spices for a scent because we still want it to achieve that, and color. But by and large, it's just kind of a stiff dough that we use for construction. Keep cutting, bud. Here we go. Right? Okay. Now, some of the things we're going to talk about on Wednesday is how to bake it to make it even easier for you, because I know that a lot of times when gingerbread bakes, it gets a very rounded, beveled shape, which is nice on a cookie, but it's very difficult for construction. So there's a couple tips to help with that. And then, of course, one of the biggest things is what type of gingerbread house you're going to do. You can make something very, very simple with 4 walls and a roof. You can go extra crazy and try and do some kind of Hogwarts type thing, like whatever you want to do. We're not doing that.
Like that?
Yeah, we're not going to do Hogwarts. But whatever you want to do, you can. Just have your template ready. I don't have one of my own. I'm not that super artsy or anything. I just Google it, steal one that's free, and go crazy. It's all about the decoration and having the experience. So on Wednesday, we're not going to make the recipe, but we will go through all of the baking techniques. We will go through the assembly techniques. The biggest one, of course, is the icing. People really struggle with the icing because they never make it stiff enough. So come back Wednesday. We'll have that all ready. We'll post some photos when this comes out. Little elf, do you have anything else you want to add?
I have a question.
What is your question?
Could we make a Pikachu Christmas gingerbread cookie?
If we had a Pikachu cutter, I'm sure we could. Now, I guess that leads us to a decent question, but first I'm going to stop my little elf. Little elf is trying to use the soft portion of the cookie cutter to cut when you should be using the sharp portion. You see how this one's nice and stiff for your hand, and this side's thinner so it cuts cookies? Try not to confuse those two, okay? Got it? Cool. Now, our little elf asked if we can make a Pikachu. I don't have a Pikachu cookie cutter. I'm sure somebody makes one, and I'm sure it's not cheap. You can always chill your dough quite a bit, like near frozen, and you can come through with a stencil. A lot of times I just cut it out of a sheet of paper, and then you can come through with an X-Acto knife, and you can trim your dough, making your own little shape, pull it off and bake it. It's the same as a cutter, it's just not an actual cutter. You're still cutting the dough, you're still getting the desired shape you want. So then you can get people's names, you can write all kinds of fancy stuff, have decorated ornaments, all that cool stuff. That was a good question, oh, thank you. What else do you have for us, buddy?
How tall can a gingerbread house get?
Oh, how tall can a gingerbread house get? Well, in some hotels, they make entire rooms out of gingerbread. Yeah, so like it's as big as you've got essentially product to waste. I've always thought it's silly personally because nobody ever uses it. Like it's cute. I'd rather just paint it and make it smell like gingerbread, but whatever. It's a good question. Close your mouth a little. All right, so we will bake these. We will post some photos. We'll give it 1 second in case there are any questions out there. Little elf, what else is on your Christmas list?
A Radical Racers car set.
What is Radical Racers?
They're like little mechanical remote control cars that have lights on them, and they can ride really fast on ceilings and walls.
They can ride on the ceiling?
Uh-huh,
That sounds dangerous.
but without falling put something in your house, then it just goes up it.
You know what, little elf? I'm really sorry I asked. Okay, that's our gingerbread man and genderless shapes in general. We will bake these. We will post a photo. My little elf will be back with us Wednesday. We will be assembling a gingerbread house. We'll talk about
that
some.
time I'll be a Santa.
Okay, we will talk about tips for assembly, tips for the icing, and how to make them last even longer. Otherwise, thank you all so much. We will see you on Wednesday. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the weather.